Hello and welcome to today's digital event. Before we get started, I'm going to go through some housekeeping rules to make sure this event is as interactive and enjoyable as possible. Firstly, you will notice a range of icons located on the top right corner of your screen. Simply hover over these icons to discover how you can ask your presenters a question, submit feedback, download additional resources, and also interact with other attendees. And if you require support at any time, please feel free to contact Redback on the number provided at the bottom of your screen. Enjoy your event.
Good morning and thank you for joining us for this introduction to Laser's new Safety and Quality Management System. I'm Jane Floyd. I'm the Principal Consultant Home Care with Laser, which is leading aged care services. And with me I have Walter Tran. He's the Solutions Manager for Centro Assist.
Good morning, everybody. We're really excited about what we're going to show you today, so let's get to it.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people online already, haven't we, Walter?
Wow, it's going up by the second, so hopefully some of these stragglers make it in by time as well. And I think one of the cool things that we have here, we even have a map of where everybody is, and we've got every state bar Tassie and NT at this stage, so...
Wow. Fantastic, welcome, thank you. So in this session, we're going to cover how we can support your organisation to transition to the new aged care standards, to give you some ideas about safeguarding your compliance to the new standards, providing a better way to manage frontline processes and supporting best practice consumer-centred care in your organisation. So we believe this system has got a lot of answers there for you.
Yep. And just some housekeeping, guys. The platform that you're using actually has an ability for you to ask some questions, and we'll get that live. So if you've got any questions while Jane or I are talking, please type them in, and we'll get to them at the end. We'll go through them.
So don't leave it to the end. Keep asking us questions, and we will hopefully get through all of those. So let's start with why the system was developed. Laser was getting a lot of feedback from our members about transitioning to the new standards and how providers would be able to manage that transition. It's, as you know, from the 1st of July, the new standards come into force, and we've only got a few months away for people to get compliant with those new standards. I think the other thing about the new standards is that people are going to require to go through their current policies and processes and see how they align to the new standards. And that's a pretty big job. And you would be probably already started that and looking at gaps in your current suite of policies and processes. The thing you'll have to do is review your policies and see if they currently align to the new standards. So as you know, in the new standards, there's consumer outcomes that are the big focus of these new aged care standards. So, you know, you're really looking at all your policies to see how they are aligning to ensuring those consumer outcomes are going to be met. So we're hoping that this system would be of assistance in guiding you through that review. The other thing that we developed it was because what we had heard is, you know, people have different ways of storing their policies. Some people have them on their shared drives. Other people have systems all over the place. So we were wanting to create a single repository for people to use to store their policies and processes and share them with their staff. I guess the idea about this policy system, although we did start off thinking that we were just going to give people Word documents, we realised that wasn't going to be good enough in today's technology age. Everyone's on their iPads and iPhones and desktops, everything's web-based. So we really then started to look at a web-based solution to have a repository for these processes and policies. So the fantastic thing about this system, it's going to be easy access for all staff, for every person, from one single place. So
I suppose, Jane, in the demo we'll get to show them why it's even better online, but, you know, one of the things I'm sure you guys shared was storing them in paper is just getting the tick that you have the paper.
Yeah.
You know, what we're trying to do with the system is actually get the outcomes, actually get people to read it and understand it, and then have a smarter way of tracking what actually happens in the business. So that's the other reason why we went online.
Yeah, and that's true because it's not just good enough to have the policy there and the process. When the auditors, what we've been told from the auditors from the Commission come to review your facility or service, they're actually going to come and speak to your staff, not just customers. They're going to say, come and speak to your staff, and they're going to ask your staff, you know, what process do you have for this? And they're going to have to be able to articulate that process. And it would be good if they could quickly put their hand on the policy or put their hand on the process to guide their discussion with the auditors when they have those things.
I think some of the chats that we had, and Jane's just going to talk about our co-design workshops that we had, you know, not everybody's going to be able to recite every word in every policy.
No.
But if they know where to find the answer to that problem or question, is actually what we're trying to solve immediately first.
Yeah, that's right. So how did we develop the system? We realised that we needed a co-design process. So we needed to work with residential and home care providers. You know, the new aged care standards are now combined into a single standards, a lot of standards for both residential and home care. I guess we sort of thought about doing separate policies for home care and separate policies for residential. But as we went along, we realised, hey, you know, actually a lot of these policies are very, very similar. So so we decided to combine them.
Yep.
But we did about 3 workshops, I think there were, that we sort of gathered the needs and wants of the providers that we were speaking to.
Yep.
And we did some user testing with the providers as well, and gathered their business requirements, systems design and system functionality.
Yeah,
and
so
you came along for the ride.
yeah, really enjoyed that. Whenever we get to talk to, I'm from the IT side of the business, but whenever we talk to real consumers, that's gold for us.
Yeah.
Because as a system provider, you always want people to actually get value out of it.
Yeah.
And so unless you hear from the people on the ground what they actually, what their needs are, you're not going to be able to design a system to match. What I found really valuable was that we had representation from the small end of town, really small providers, to multi-facility providers, and trying to find the commonality. And there was a lot of commonality, I think. But that drove the design, and will also input into the design ongoing. And Jane will talk about this later, but the whole intent of the platform is to solve this immediate need around policies and processes, but to help you with that journey ongoing. So that's the other aspect of the co-design workshops, was to start engaging industry. And that will continue, I think, over the next few months.
Yeah, and we've really rushed to market with this product because time is of the essence. And we looked at a couple of different technology partners to work with us on that. We wanted someone who had a bit of experience in the social care sector, and also someone who would work with us about designing a system that would suit us, not just something that's off the shelf and we had to sort of fit in with whatever their design is. And so we're very pleased that Centro has come on board.
Yeah, and we're really looking forward to it. I think we work in other care markets, and one of the drivers is we all know that it's not just about the providers themselves, it's actually about the outcomes that the providers are trying to resolve. And that's I think gives us all job satisfaction, and that's why we're here, right?
Yeah, that's really good. So let's get into what's inside the system. So I want to talk about a few of the content features. So we've had experts in the industry develop 60 policies and processes that are performers for every requirement for the new standards. So there's lots of requirements under the 8 new standards, and we've developed a policy for each one of those requirements. So you could pick out any of those policies and look at a process that could align to any of those requirements. And there's a lot of requirements. So there's a little bit of doubling up in some of the policies, because a lot of those requirements can be very similar, but at least there is one attached to each one of those requirements, which is no small feat. I mean, we've been really under the pump since December last year, pulling together those policies and processes, and in some ways try to second guess the Commission for, you know, what are they going to audit us on, what are they going to assess us on. So we're hoping that those policy and processes are going to be, you know, a good foundation for you to use to develop your own policies. And one of the things that I've really been focused on is making sure that as you take these policies, that you make them yours, you make them your organisations, because you've got a unique organisation, you've got mission, you've got values, you've got a way about doing things that is important to you and needs to be reflected in your policies and processes. So we call them pro formas. I mean, they're properly written and they're complete, but they're only very high level, and we provide a guidance for you for how you might want to do something much more specific procedures in your organisation.
Well, Jane, I think sometimes, you know, we've had the debate internally to call them pro formas is kind of underselling them to some degree. You know, Laser's put in months of work writing these, reviewing these, getting them to the right language. It's pretty finished content, but I think to Jane's point is you still need to make them yours. That's I think the message here is that Laser's helped you get to a certain point. 80-90% right, would you say? Right, pretty close.
Exactly, yeah.
And then, but you still need to just do that little last bit.
And I think it's a educational opportunity too for your staff. So you've got the policies and procedures. It's a great way to go through each one of those and discuss them with your staff. Talk about the new standards, why we've got to change the way we do things, and use it as a sort of a tool to drive cultural change through the organisation. It's not good enough just to have a policy and let it sit on the shelf somewhere. It needs to be, you need to engage staff with those policies and what they mean and the processes, and discuss with them about how you would you know, if those processes work for your staff, and if they don't, maybe design or co-design new processes for them so that you can align to the requirements of the new standard. So some of the more difficult policies that you might not already have in your suite of policies that we've developed, which I think is fantastic that we've done, is one sort of medication management. The other one is sort of antimicrobial stewardship. We've got one on open disclosure. We've got one that really is about supporting consumers to exercise choice and control and take risks. And that's a new thing in the standards now, about allowing consumers to take risks and how do you manage those risks. So we've got a policy around that. And also about cultural safety and diversity, which is also a big focus in the new standards, which is the story of the consumer. You know, what's their background? What's their preferences in life, and how do we capture those? So there's a policy about that. And then there's also a policy about the management of high impact and high prevalence risks. So how are you managing? That's more about clinical safety and the personal care, clinical care. So, you know, there's some guidelines around how do you manage the you know, those sort of activities happening in your residential facility.
And I suppose just before we move on, Jane, we have been asked if we have the full list of the names of policies, so we can't give that out. So Jane will provide some contact details after.
Yeah, there's 60 of them.
There's 60 of them. And I suppose the really important part of that slide there that you've got is it covers every requirement of the new standards. So Laser's actually written something to adhere to every standard. So there's full coverage of the new standards.
That's right. One of the really great parts of this system, and I think this is also about change management in your organisation, is to brand this system, brand these policies as your own. So we've got the capability to put your own logo on there, you can put your own mission statement, you can really make this system your own and the policies your own. And that's really important in making sure that your organisation is going to embrace a new way of doing things, a new way of working. So that all the policies, you can have them as they are, you can edit them, change them, improve them, and you can delete them. So they're yours. So we're handing them over to you to use as you wish. The other capability of the system is to upload additional policies. So you might have a suite of other policies that you might want to review, but they're still good enough to continue to use, and they can be uploaded to the system as well. So, and you might choose to buy other policies as well. So a lot of people in residential facilities have clinical policies that have to do with nursing and how you manage wounds and bed sores and things like that. Well, you probably already have a suite of policies that you're subscribing to follow best practice in medical care. The other thing about the features of the system is that we can create direct links to and from each policy. So you can send out a link to a policy in the system in your email. You can put a link to a policy in your system in a report or in a dashboard or in any kind of document you wish. And if that person's got access to that system, you can click on that link and go straight to it. So it's cloud-based, which means it's online 24/7. And anyone who's registered in that system who has internet access can access that link. So that's really helpful for if you've got work instructions and things like that. You can have quick links to the system and directly to that policy, directly to that process. The other thing about being cloud-based is that it's networked backups. What does that mean?
Yeah, look, I think it's just the reliability. It's funny, over the last few years, you just expect things to be on, and because it is really available. So we actually use Macquarie Telecom, who does all the kind of enterprise-grade type stuff. So this thing is going to be online. The only time you're not going to be able to access it is if your internet's not working. So.
I hope those country, rural and regional areas.
Let's hope the NBN's rolled out to some of these places that we've got on the map there.
Yeah, come on, NBN. The other thing that some of the providers, this is a bit of feedback from some providers wanting consumers to access their policies and procedures. So this is all about, I guess, the new move towards transparency and opening your organisation up to the consumers and people and their families who are using your services. If you register a consumer on the system, they can get access to the system as well, which is an interesting perspective.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that.
Yeah, okay. And the other thing about the policies is that we really worked hard to have a plain language. So we've had a plain language writer review all the policies, and in a way, because we want people at the front line to be able to understand what they mean and not be too verbose. We followed the KISS principle, which is keep it simple, sweetheart.
Oh, is that what the access means? Okay.
Some people have other ways for that acronym, but keep it simple, sweetheart. So we really try to keep them short as we possibly can, but have enough information and in there to guide people, but keep it short and simple, easy, and for people to read at the front line. And in my mind, I'm envisaging somebody who's got an iPhone or a tablet, clicking on the link to that policy and procedure and being able to action something right there and then, rather than always having to ring up the manager or ring up the supervisor or ring up the nurse to know what to do. They'll have the capability to access their policies and procedures directly.
Yeah, cool.
Next slide. So let's take a look at the system in real time.
Yeah, okay. So I think my screen's going to show up on your side pretty shortly. So I'll just full screen this. There we go. It's browser-based, so you can bring it up on anything that's got a web browser, so on your iPad, on your PC, or on your iPhone, and it will respond to the size of that screen. So this will actually change in what it looks like as you change devices. And you'll notice we actually designed this with real end users in mind. It was a bit of a different take. Normally when you talk about a software vendor, they design it from a functionality standpoint. But what's happened over the last few years is to design it so real people can actually use it without training.
Real people.
Real people, right? And it's more about training. One of the things that we get asked about the new system is, do I need to be trained? And I think you touched on that before, is we've designed it so we don't need to train anybody. That's the whole point. Yeah. So up the top there, you'll see that there are some words there. You've got the processes, you've got policies, you've got documents, you've got people. I'm just going to go through these in the demo, but starting at home, one of the things that Jane talked about was we will be able to brand this for your organisation. So even though it's got Laser at the moment, the intent is that when you do purchase this, that you'll actually be able to put on your own branding. And then on top of that, as Laser's producing more new content, you'll have news and updates be presented through here as well. So the intent is to stay up to date with the latest legislation if the government happens to revise any part of that of those standards, Laser will update the appropriate policies and then actually share that with the consumers.
Yeah, I was only going to say, I think you did that term about we're going to keep it sticky. We really want the system to be responsive to changes in the industry, and as you know, they're happening every week, and so we really want to be able to push those changes out and the latest news to you, so that you can then quickly look at your processes or policies and then make adjustments.
Yeah. But they'll be managed. So, Laser might ship a policy around choice and independence at the moment. If you've gone and adapted that and then Laser might produce a new one, we're not going to force that on you straight away. So Laser will still give you the option to take it or not, because you still need to apply it into your business.
Yeah, so for example, there's something coming out soon about restraints and chemical restraints as well as physical restraints. So, yeah, it would be really good to have that sort of capability to be able to tell providers what they might need to do to adjust to be compliant.
Yep. Right, so why online? I touched on this before. The first thing about making it online was actually making it more accessible. I do have some sad stories of going to workplaces where all the policies and procedures are printed on a shelf somewhere. And I think in hindsight, people will realise what was the purpose of that exercise, because if it's on the shelf in hard copy that nobody reads,
it's a tick in the box.
It's a tick in the box.
Yeah.
Whereas online, we're trying to make it so people can actually find it. Now, quite interestingly, and I'll see this possibly, I should have asked the poll question, but I've got young kids, and one of the things that I've observed with my kids going into primary school now is their experience with a library is completely different, right? There's no more go and learn the Dewey Decimal System. Here's the tour of the library. I'm going to show you where all the books are. They just get shown a search engine and they go in there to find it. Now, I'll touch on that a bit later about the search engine here. But for those people who were brought up with the library experience, I think what we're used to is browsing. So first off, I'll show you that in the Processes tab. So if I click on the Processes tab here, what Laser's going to do is actually ship the product or the system with some processes already. And we're adding to that as we speak as well, so you'll have more over the period. But I'll show you what a process looks like. Now, one of the biggest design elements of what we've done was we recognise that everybody's kind of different. You're going to have people who are visual learners. You're going to have people who are used to just looking at documents. So you're going to have different, I suppose, preferences on how you want to consume your information. So the first tab that I've got here is actually designed for somebody who's relatively new to the content. And one of the adult learning principles is to chunk things up. So it's not just about chunking it up for kids. If anything, it's actually even more important for adults, because we have so much information flying around. We just have to chunk things up so it's consumable. So down the left-hand side there, you'll actually see the process steps. And then in the middle is actually the content. So you're only going to be exposed with the content that's relevant at that step. And then you can actually follow the steps.
Yeah, it's really, that's what we loved about the system. I think other people using the system were testing it, were really liking those steps too.
Exactly, and I suppose this is the observation of the behaviour of it in documents. Now, I'm not anti-documents. You can still print this out. So you can still, there's a button there to download it as PDFs. So you can still look at it as a PDF, but that's only got a shorter usage, I think, than online. Online is going to be the latest, it's going to be easier to consume, it's going to be easier to find as well.
Easy to find, exactly.
Yep. Now, just going through these tabs here, so this step-by-step, again, based for somebody who's relatively new and wants to be able to just follow it and learn it. There's another tab here that's called All Steps. And it's actually the same content, but all it is, it's all in one page. And again, this is more to appeal to people who just got used to those Word documents. Even though they like the shorter style, they just have this comfort with Word documents. And it's not a negative thing. It's not to say it's bad that you're used to Word documents. It's just that's what your preference is. And there's a percentage of people that will always be like that.
Yeah.
So imagine our kids, I think, when our kids go through school, they're going to be visual and search. I don't think they'll be able to adapt to the older style, because that's just what they're used to. And then there's another tab here called Map. And roughly around 30 to 40% of the population are visual learners.
I think I'm one of them.
You're one of them? Me too. And actually, what we find is people who come from a non-English speaking background sometimes gravitate to visual representations as well, because they just don't find it as, hard to consume. It just looks easier initially. And then there's a debate, funnily enough, that when you were looking at it visually, do you want it horizontal or vertical? Which is quite a weird thing to bring up, but it actually does also reflect the cultural background on certain people. You know, in English, it's left to right, but other languages, they've been trained to go top to bottom. Plus, actually, the reason for the top to bottom option is for things like iPhones and smartphones, so it's easier to consume on the phone.
Through it, yeah.
Exactly. Now, the cool thing about the system is that you only need to record processes in one format, and then it generates all this.
Okay.
So if you're a large organization and you guys have done a bunch of process maps, well, this will still cater for that, but you don't need to do the process maps anymore. You just actually need to enter the data in. And I'll show you roughly what that looks like if we have time. So that's the processes tab, a bit more interactive, a bit more visual, new age stuff. So what I'm showing you really is the evolution of what we've learned in big corporate businesses. And I know there's a few larger care providers here that might have already got some things or content that looks like this.
Yeah.
But this is what the world is moving to anyway in terms of how we consume content, like processes.
Yeah. I love it.
The other tab, and this is where a lot of the meat of what Laser's going to, I suppose, provision when you buy the system is these policies that Jane's been talking about. And you'll see here, there's quite a lot. So when you start to, have 60, the browse concept isn't as useful sometimes, I find.
No. You don't want to be scrolling through a lot of lists of things, yeah.
Yeah. Now, not to say you can't browse it.
Yeah.
And you can, there's a list tab here that just allows you to filter if you like. So some people like to filter.
Right.
But to be honest, what we've all been used to now is searching, I think.
Yeah.
And I used to make this joke that it was a generational thing. It's not. If anything, it's more about convenience. It's more about reliably getting the content.
Yeah. Because we're all Googling everything these days,
yeah, exactly.
isn't it? We're just used to searching in that way.
Exactly. We actually don't even have the patience anymore to browse things.
No.
You go to a website and if you can't spot it really quick, you're just going to find the search and you're going to type it in.
Yeah.
Now, I suppose one of the observations and learnings was that because people use Google so much, the experience needs to be similar to Google.
Yeah.
There are systems, I'm sure some of the larger places use things like SharePoint or other document management systems where the search isn't that great.
Very limited, yeah.
Or if it's limited or it's just not reliable.
It's built into the system, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So search is pretty cool here because we're just searching the policy and process content. Now you notice, if you can see it, there's actually a little microphone button there too.
Yeah.
Now, this is what the platform's built in. It's brand new tech. So this stuff is only about a year or two old. Proven technology though, but it's built so we can actually add more to it over time.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's already been built into it is voice recognition.
Yeah.
So if you're a bit lazy and you don't even want to type in your query.
Well, sometimes I just can't see it, like if I haven't got my glasses, I can just talk into it. I do that with Siri quite a bit.
Yeah, there you go. So, there's still an ongoing debate about how good real voice recognition is at the moment. Sometimes it doesn't like you, right? But you can actually use that here as well. The future for that is actually the exciting bit. And I think as technologists, what we really love about it is to be able to converse with our content. It means that we can actually just ask a question and then have the system actually give it back to us. So that's actually part of the future of the platform.
Oh, fantastic.
Is to be able to, what we call, not chatbots, but to actually have natural language processing to actually help you find your content faster.
And what about people who speak other languages and, maybe English is not their first language? Would that sort of cater for that sort of thing too?
And that's the cool thing. This voice recognition is not ours. We're actually using Google's voice recognition.
Okay,
So
it's
whatever.
It's going to be pretty good.
Exactly. So whatever Google supports is what you'll get.
Right.
So, so we're trying to future-proof this as well. So as the technology evolves, we'll be able to adapt to that.
That's the stickiness that we're still talking about.
All right, so let's give it a shot. I'm not going to try to get it to recognise my voice today, but let's just type it in the word choice. And in our testing, what we saw was possibly most of the words, unless you use something really common, like the word care or something like that, you'll find it generally in the first page.
Yeah.
Or even the first entry here, because we're looking for, I suppose, the names of the policy or most of the content that has that word.
Yeah.
So let's click into one of these. Let's look at choice and independence. Now, so what Laser's done is written the actual policy to a degree that's near usable for an end user, right, or an organisation.
And this is a new perspective this is a new sort of focus of the the standards, which hasn't been in the standards before, but yeah.
Now, some of these things still need explanation. So Laser has put in some of that. So there's some background, and there's even then who it applies to. And if I scroll down, there's also links back to the standards as well. So if you do want to read exactly what the standards actually say, you can actually click on this and open that up.
And all of these are editable.
Exactly.
You can change these around. These are going to be your policy if you choose them.
No, like I said earlier, it's as if Laser's done 80-90% of the work for you, and then you need to do that last 10%.
Saved a lot of time, I think, for people.
One of the things I really appreciate of the writers that Laser got in to put this was also things that under this title called process guidance.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that was actually really valuable, Jane.
Yeah.
Not only just go, hey, thou shalt do this.
Yeah.
This is what we suggest that you should do in your processes.
Because everybody has a different procedure for doing things.
Yep.
Everyone's unique and they've got different, from facility to home care. But yeah, so here's best practice guidance for developing a process.
Yeah, exactly. So most of the policies have that. Obviously, when it's applicable, you actually have that. So Laser's actually written that. And if I scroll down a bit more, the other cool thing, well, for me anyway, if you kind of step forward a few more steps and about these policies, you'll need to use these policies and collect evidence to prove compliance. So what Laser's also done is suggested evidence that you might need for each one of these policies.
Yeah.
Which is really cool, because if you think about sometimes, with policies, there's a sense of unknown, right, Jane? You think you've done the right job. You've organised the auditor, or the auditor might have just rocked up at your door with these unannounced visits.
Yeah.
And you go, I hope I've got everything.
Yeah.
Whereas now we've actually got some advice about what you should have.
Yeah, and I mean, we're still learning about how the Commission is going to be assessing us and what sort of evidence they're going to be looking for. But we've sort of suggested some documents there. So that there is going to be physical evidence that they're going to want to see, and that there are suggestions, and you could add your own as you go along as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a bit of a game changer. Typically in these sorts of environments where you have a regulator and you have content, there's always this unknown. Am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
And I think Laser's role in this is to give a lot more certainty in that process.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that's going to be the scary thing for people, because I was only thinking of the unannounced visits, and the person who knows where that thing is or the answer to that is never there. It's Murphy's Law, and they're never going to be there. But at least somebody can go into, okay, let me have a look into the policy, but we have on that, and where I need to find the evidence to support that we're doing this right thing by the consumer. So it'll give people a bit of a guidance, so that they can actually answer while the assessors are there. And, the assessors can get on there and have a look themselves as well. You can give them access to the system and say, take a look.
So we are making, I suppose, incremental improvements to the overall process of being compliant, really.
Yeah.
You can't change this overnight, but if we can start to make it easier for not only the providers but also the assessors, I think that's a win-win.
Yeah, exactly. So we're hoping we're going to talk about future phases, but in the future to have some sort of audit tool or a dashboard tools so you can see how much compliance how compliant you are to the new standards. Yeah, in the future.
The other thing, obviously, with the wealth of knowledge, I did make a joke the other day about the combined years of experience of all the people that went into writing.
What are you trying to say?
No, but it was like somebody.
Yeah, there's a lot of years there.
Somebody guesstimated there's like 150 years of experience, Jane.
There's a lot of fingers in this pie.
But for me, that was more about sharing that knowledge, and that's what's kind of seen through the policies here. There's links to some videos that we found that are helpful.
Yeah.
There's links to all the legislation, and all those links are always up to date. We've made sure that we've linked to the actual series, so that if you do click on them, they'll always point you to the latest version of that. Because we do know at the moment there's still quite a lot of change.
Yeah.
So even the Aged Care Act, there was an amendment to it in January, I think, from memory. So you don't want to be pointing to something that was published in December, for example.
No, that's right.
So we've got all that up to date.
Yeah.
And then the other interesting thing, I think Laser recognised that it wasn't just about Laser's knowledge, but there are other reputable places out there that publish related material.
Yeah.
And we've also put that in there. So there's
Yeah.
references to things like the Australian law reform in this example.
Yeah.
But there's other ones that we've pointed to universities
Yeah.
and other places.
Because I think the capability of the system in the future is to upload videos to educational videos that people might want to look at.
Yep.
Other sort of documents that might be supportive of people's understanding of the policy.
Yeah, remember the intent of this is, number one, to make it easier for somebody within the business to find things, but then number two, to make it simpler to understand, but then also to learn about it. You know,
Yeah.
I think one of the things that a lot of people take for granted is if you've been in the business for a while, you kind of know most of it.
Yeah.
But you know that, especially in this care market, it's changing. You are bringing people who are going to be new.
Yeah.
And so you have to cater for that. You can't wait for them to work their 5 years
Yeah.
before they're compliant.
That's so true.
You need to be able to bring them on board.
And it's
faster.
just helpful for people, onboarding people, to show them the policy and the supporting documentation and any educational videos.
Yep.
It links to them.
So this is one example of one of the 60. So like I said, there's 60 of these already that's been
Yeah,
written.
60, yeah.
And there's a few more planned as well. Now, the next tab there you'll see is the Documents tab. One of the other things that we recognise, and this is probably more for the smaller end of town, you know, when you're a smaller provider, you probably don't have all the systems in place and you're probably storing documents on a shared drive somewhere.
Yeah.
That's not the greatest because you can't really get to share that.
No.
So we do have a provision for you to upload documents here and actually link the documents to these policies as well.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if you're a bigger provider and you've got intranets and document management systems, we're not suggesting that we're forcing you to move your documents here, but you can definitely link between systems.
Perfect, yeah.
So you can link, if you've got SharePoint,
So helpful.
doesn't matter. As long as you can put in the link, you actually be able to link to and from them as well.
Because there's no such thing as one system to do it all, is there? You know,
No.
it's all about piecing systems together and making sure that they're interoperable.
I think
or
there's a dream.
connectable, yeah.
You know, I'm sure if we talk to providers, they'll just go, just give me one system that I've got my case management, my
Yeah,
care, my
yeah.
finances and stuff. Guess what? You probably could get one, but it'll cost you
Yep.
a lot of money.
And then you're constantly having to update it
Yeah.
to the new technology. So now it's all, is it got APIs or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
now?
a lot more pragmatic
Plugged
about
in, yeah.
the approach. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got that, and then this last tab here. What we also recognised was that you need to be able to invite people to the system a lot faster. So we don't want you to be dealing with IT.
No.
We wanted you to be able to invite people yourself.
Yeah.
Especially for the smaller providers, you know, you might have bring in a temp, and you might want to educate them on a specific policy.
Yeah.
You can actually just invite them here.
Yeah.
So you can hit this little button, add new user. You put their name in and their email address.
Yeah, very simple.
Very simple. There's some other things like what level of access they have. Are they admin or reviewer? And some roles. Now, this is the interesting part. What we're working on at the moment is to filter the content based on their role.
Yeah.
So, you know, we talked about having 60 policies, but guess what? Not all of them apply to everybody.
Yeah.
Now, your frontline clinical staff might only have about 40 that apply to them.
Yeah.
So when you set them up, when they log in, they'll only see those ones that are relevant to them initially.
Yeah, exactly. So they're not overwhelmed by everything. They can just, you know, get a cut down version. Maybe frontline staff could be like that, care staff.
Exactly. And again, that's the point. I think, you know, you've seen some of those elements in the design. We're trying not to overwhelm people when they're accessing it.
Yeah, keeping it simple again. Yeah.
And like I said, or Janie said earlier, the policies are editable. So when you guys get it, you saw what you saw, but then you can hit an edit button and actually edit that. I won't go into that detail because it is browser-based and it will be intuitive just like what you've seen as well. So you can just hit an edit button and type it up there. The last thing I'll show you before I hand back over to Jane is there's a give feedback button. So one of the things that we recognise is that things evolve and things change and you might want to provide feedback, positive, negative feedback, and we actually have put that in the system. So if you're on a specific page and you want to ask a question about anything, you actually hit the feedback button and then pop in your comment.
Yeah,
and
that's going to be very helpful.
And that goes straight to support. That goes straight to Laser, and then we triage that. If it's technical, we'll jump on that, and otherwise, if it's business related, somebody from Jane's team will probably jump on that and have a look at that.
Yeah.
So gives you more of that interaction, I suppose, with Laser and the support for that. All right. Let me stop there. There has been some questions that I'll get to probably
so ask
after.
your questions.
Yeah, I've seen a couple, but maybe I'll jump to that at the end.
Do you want
Yeah.
to, the questions at the end?
Yeah, I'll do the questions at the end.
Yeah,
Over
okay.
you,
So,
Jane.
but please send your questions because we're going to get to those in a minute.
Okay.
If we're not covering everything. So,
Okay.
Just talking a bit more about the rollout. So we've rushed to market with the foundations of this system, and so that's the policies and processes and process guidance for you, and so that's available now for sale. In future phases, so phase 2 from July, you'll be able to create the flowcharts that Walter's been showing you, and that would be very beneficial. So you've got a few months to sort of work those out, because I don't know if you've ever done any procedure flowcharts. It takes a bit of work, and that's again part of the consulting with staff about how your processes should be, what the procedures should be, and driving that cultural change and that education throughout the organisation, even using those processes and the policies. So from July, you'll also be able to upload and save those additional policies and documents that we've talked about, that from July onwards. And future releases, wow, our vision is big for this system. So I'm seeing dashboards, customer surveys, collating those surveys into the system and providing some sort of dashboard about your satisfaction levels and things like that.
Look, one of the things I forgot to mention was, being online, one of the aspects is that we're logging activity.
Yeah.
And for people who are running facilities, that's really important, because now you will know who's been looking at things or who's actually not been looking at things.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that. That's very interesting, because some people, for compliance reasons, we need to see whether a staff member has looked at a policy, at your request.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of the discussion
Performance
at the moment,
management. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the discussion for the later releases is to go, well, maybe we even quiz them. Maybe we'll be able to ask them questions. So
Yeah.
I suppose we are really open to what the market needs will be.
Yeah.
We don't have all the answers, I think.
No.
Jane would be kind of prudent to say we're listening.
Yeah. We don't want to run ahead. We want to do what is most important to our users and people who subscribe to this system.
Yep.
Yeah.
And look, and that's why the feedback is there, and I'm sure we'll do a few more co-design workshops of needs, but
Yeah.
the intent is to make sure that we support the needs of the market and not just come out with features because we think it's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So I guess everybody wants to know, well, how much is it going to cost? Oh, we've waited all this time to tell you how much it's cost. Well, we're not going to tell you how much it's cost, but it is a tiered pricing system, and if you contact us, we'll let you know how much it's going to cost. But I want to tell you something about the cost. It's a subscription fee, an annual subscription fee, and a very small fee, I think, compared to other systems. But there's no installation costs, so it's in the cloud. And the pricing is based on size and revenue of your organisation. And I do want to let you know that what we've worked hard, and this is Laser's intention, is to make this system affordable for smaller providers. And that's really been a very strong focus for Laser to ensure that happens. So let's get some questions. So do you want to have a look at questions?
Yeah, let's jump in.
While you're having a look,
Okay.
I'll just say, if you need help with this system, we've got a range of consultants on board at Laser who can assist you. So we can assist you with, and I'm one of them, in-house education sessions for your staff and even for boards. So we can come on site and educate your staff on the new standards and even the new system if you want to. We can do gap analysis, so we can review your current policies and processes and identify where your gaps are in meeting the new standards and give you solutions for closing those gaps. And we can do pre-accreditation audits, where they're friendly audits where we come in and pretend like we're quality assessors and audit your organisation in a similar way that they would do that.
So first, there's actually a comment. You know how I did say we didn't have anybody from TAS? Well, we did.
Oh,
have
did
somebody
we?
from TAS.
Oh, somebody from TAS.
Yeah, so
hello TAS.
Tasmania. I think what happens in the map is because some of the telco runs through Melbourne.
You don't get to see them?
You don't
Right.
get to see them.
Okay.
So sorry about that, Taz. So a question about a power failure. So if I just read it verbatim.
Yeah.
What if there's a power failure within the vicinity of the facility? How do we access the online policies and procedures? Now, I did mention
good point.
there are PDF generated copies, and that's the suggestion from a business continuity perspective anyway.
Yeah.
Is to periodically just generate the PDFs.
Yeah.
And do print them out. I think
Yeah.
it's a continuity.
And that's
thing,
pretty easy, wasn't it? It was just a press of a button and all the policies and processes can be printed out into a hard copy version.
Yeah. And the cool thing is it's generated out, so all the formatting's done for you, so you don't need to spend hours trying to copy and paste this stuff back into paper.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's actually done for you.
Yeah. I could think that the other thing...
Sorry about that, guys. So we just had a bit of issue with my mic there, so we just had to cut out. I'll just go back to that last question, Jane, and then we'll continue. So it was about power outage, right? So the verbatim was, what if there was a power outage, and how do we access this online stuff? Obviously by PDFs. So you can generate the content out into PDFs, and it's done for you, so you don't need to copy it out yourself. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Next question.
I was only going to make the point when you print something out, it should be then uncontrolled. I think we've got uncontrolled document at the bottom.
Exactly.
So,
it's got some watermarks and it's got the dates and when you actually produced it, so people don't.
That's
use
really
that
important to
So about your staff, if the staff follow the steps and complete the assessment, does it give the management a data about which staff has done it? Yes. Okay, so that must have been asked before I actually answered that question.
Okay.
We actually know because when you invite people, specific users, we actually know who's looked at what.
Yeah.
So we're working.
We don't know if they've read it, but we know if they looked at it.
Yeah, look, I think it's like most things.
Yeah.
You know, even if you got a test on your employee, does it mean they actually know it and will behave that way?
Yeah.
Can you really prove hand on heart that they will behave that way?
Yeah.
I think as employers, we just have to get to enough that we've done our due diligence with our employees, and then that already lowers the risk.
Yeah, but that's pretty handy because you can send out an email to your staff to say, here's this new policy, here's a new process, everybody get on and have a look at it.
Yep.
You will be able to see who has not gone on and looked at it.
Yep.
So,
the other question here, can the policies be under standards? Funnily enough, in the demo, I've actually just stripped the standard numbers out, which is a bit of a trick, but...
Will we not? You know,
yeah.
It's...
No, the fact is we've presented them grouped by the standards.
Yeah,
So,
they are organised under the standards.
yep, it's just that you just don't see the standard.
We just didn't see the standard numbers because people got a bit... Some people file their policies according to the topic and other people like to file their standards according to the numbered standards. Yep. And in the end, the numbering got a bit... it confused people because they might have other policies that don't actually comply or aren't anything to do with the standards. So it might be something in their facility that doesn't align there, but it doesn't mean you can't put it under the standards. It's that we've sort of, okay, well, let's just go about it from a topic perspective.
Yep.
So they are organised under the standards at the moment.
Yep, and when you hand it over, you can do whatever you would like with it afterwards if you want to rearrange that. All right, next question. Somebody said the system looks great, which is good to hear, guys.
Thank you.
What kind of review and testing went into the system functionality and also the review of the policies? Was the testing and review done in conjunction with industry representatives? Yeah, so that's a big yes. So a lot of work has been done with, like I said, normal users. I always use that term. I'm not sure if that's a positive term or not. But
I thought it was real users.
Yeah, real users, that's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, it has to be. It has to be. Technology, if it's built by technologists, nobody will use it. So a lot of testing went with real people. And And honestly, they just picked it up.
Yeah.
I remembered a couple of the sessions where we had got the content out, and I could see their screens, I think. And I was about to give them a tour, but I could see people already clicking through everything and
Yeah.
thought, oh, actually, you know what? I don't even need to introduce what's going on.
Yeah.
Because it's just like a website.
Yeah.
So it was kind of really... really
And as for the review of the content, you know, there's been a number of reviewers, and we've got a lot of industry experience, who are people who've been in the industry a long time, reviewing those policies and processes. So we reviewed them from a residential care perspective and a home care perspective. So, you know, I hope we've got as close as we can or as close as we know to best practice. So that's what our aim is. But best practice is also about reviewing and continually updating and continually improving. So, you know, we've got it to a certain level and it's over to you to continue that momentum of best practice. Yeah.
Now, I'm just looking through all these questions here. We probably have more questions than we have time, which is fantastic.
Okay, which is good. We've got 10 minutes left.
So I might start to selectively go through some of this. So please, if you did ask a question and I don't bring it up, it's not because I didn't like the question. It's just...
we can come back to you with all those questions.
Yeah. Look, hopefully we've got these logged. We'll talk to the tech guys later and we can come back to you about these questions. This one's from Jane, I think. Have policies been written and partitioned with regard to the aged care services on offer in the organisation, e.g. home care versus resi care?
I think I mentioned before that we were going to do separate policies and processes, but in the end, it didn't really. We didn't really need to do as much as that as what we thought. I think the big difference in writing them is that we didn't call people residents or care recipients with their consumers. So, and that sort of, once we got that sort of wording right, then it kind of aligned everybody into the same thing. So it's a consumer outcome. We're talking about consumers, not particular residents or care recipients. So I think we have done quite well with ensuring that they align to both. But as I said, you review it, you look at it, see if that fits your organisation. You might have particular terminology in your organisation that you choose to use in these policies. Feel free to change it as you see fit.
Okay, I'll read through some of these IT questions. So, I think somebody asked about single sign-on. So when you're a large organisation and you've got single sign-on. So
Love single sign-on.
Yeah, we are supporting the Azure platform initially, and we are working on more. So we are a tech provider. So we for the larger providers, we'll need to talk to them about what they've got set up, and the intent then is to just synchronise it with your HR platform, so you don't need to even invite people.
Yeah. So once you've added somebody to the system, they don't keep needing to put in their password every time they go access it.
So you can store that just like any other kind of system where you can store the cookie and then you don't need to enter it in unless it times out or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of cool. A lot of people asking about how much it costs. Do you want to just repeat about what the approach there was?
So it's a tiered approach, a tiered cost. We've got a 20% discount for Laser members, and it's all I can say is it's very affordable, and particularly affordable for smaller providers. So we'd like to talk to you about cost directly. If you could do that. So we've got an email address there, quality@laser.asn.au, or you can phone us on 1300 111 636.
Yep, so a nice one about the future. So the question was, are you planning to have audits included on this software?
Yes.
Yeah, so...
We are working towards that so that you can actually have a simplified list of things that we think that you will need to have to be compliant. But as you can appreciate, the Commission is still working out what evidence is going to be required by them to be compliant. So, we're listening very closely to them to what sort of evidence they're going to be looking for this compliance. Yeah.
And then question, is it possible to download a policy and customise it and then load it onto our intranet? Now, one of the things that obviously people already have systems in place.
Yeah.
The intent is to move that some of the policy and process content to here. But I think one of the things that we said earlier is that you can still link stuff back from your intranet into these the system, because every policy and process has its own unique URL.
Yeah.
And they remain the same even if you update the versions and whatnot.
Yeah.
So you can actually link from your intranet into here.
Yeah.
And then related to that, somebody was asking about just the editing. So you'll be able to edit live in the system.
Yeah.
So it won't be.
But I just want to mention that there is going to be a transition. So there's what you're already using now, which is your policies and processes, and then there's all these new ones. I guess in the meantime, what you might want to do is go through each of those policies and then copy that into your existing system, and then and really keeping two systems going at the one time, so that eventually you could probably switch over to the other system. I reckon it's going to be better than any system you've got now, but yeah, the policies are yours. You can do what you want with them.
Yep, and there's a couple of questions that are very similar, but I'll just read the first one of this. If we customise a policy, how do we get the updated policy if Laser changes it? Do we have to manually update our amended version?
Yes, you will. You'll have to manually update it because we're not going to push out changes to your policies because you will have edited them according to your needs and wants. But we are definitely going to develop a communication channel where we can tell you where we have updated an approach to a policy, and you can make those adjustments yourself.
Oh, here's a bit of a tricky one. Can you buy certain policies and procedures without purchasing the full platform, Jane?
No.
Yeah.
No, because I guess our approach with that is I guess you can buy the whole platform and then not use it. That's up to you. But the whole premise of what we're trying to approach is this a system in order to have a repository, to have a communication with Laser about what the changes might be that you need to update your policies with, and continually to improve your policies. So it's really we want something that's going to be usable for you, and we believe it's going to be sticky enough for you to want to keep this system. But as I said, that you have to buy the whole kit and caboodle. But if you choose not to have the system, that's up to you. But we reckon that you're going to keep it because it's really a really good system.
Yep. Getting to the tail end of this now. How do we access the list of policies currently available? So we touched on that earlier.
Yeah, we can send you a list. If you email the quality@laser.asn.au, we can shoot you a list through all the policies.
Yep.
There's 60 of them, but pretty much the title of the policy is connected to the requirement of the standards. So if you want to know if we've got a policy on, I don't know, such and such standard requirement 3BA, IV, whatever, we can say yes, and we can send you that policy. So everything is aligned to those policies, so those requirements.
And then this is probably the last question, is can you tell us how versioning works? So maybe I'll talk to that.
Yeah.
So what will happen is every edit that you make is actually logged. So it's not like a document per se. Everything that you make is logged. Initially, we'll have direct edit. So what you do will directly be reflected. In the July release, we'll actually have full version control. So you can say, well, show me what it was like a year ago. Show me what it was like 3 months ago. So you have the full then suite of this draft environment into the production environment as well. So that's coming down the line. But initially, it will be a bit simpler than that. Okay. Like I said, I have skipped through some questions there, guys. So don't be offended if you did put a question and I've skipped it. Just cognizant of time here.
Yeah.
Jane, so what's the next steps if people are interested?
If you're interested, please email us at quality@laser.asn.au or telephone 1300 111 636. And just before we finish, there is something I would really like to thank those providers, the home care providers and the residential care providers that really co-designed this system with us. They've really given up their time to help make the system relevant to our industry and relevant to how they do things. So they've done a wonderful job, and hats off to them because they've made it real for us. So I think. Anything else we want to say before?
No, that's it. I obviously really enjoyed. Look, we had a massive audience today, so it was really exciting.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Yeah,
cover Australia. I know. What was the time in WA? It was just after.
Are they 3
Pretty
hours
early.
behind us?
Yeah,
or
pretty
something?
early.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate everybody staying on and listening to what we've got on offer. So hopefully we'll get to talk in the
Please
future.
email us your questions, comments, and any concerns, and we'd be happy to get back to you
Yeah,
ASAP.
And hopefully what we do have the names of people who asked some of those questions that I skipped through. So we'll probably take those offline and see if we can get you the answers to some of these.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you for joining us.
All right. Thank you. All right. Have a good day.